Occult Confessions is brought to you commercial-free through the generous support of our patrons. Visit occultconfessions.com and click on Donate to help keep the history of the occult on the digital airwaves. It's time to start our series on the Mormons, which must necessarily start with a healthy dose of disclaimers. First, the Mormons have been teased enough, and while we're never here to take anyone too seriously, we're also not here to tear the Mormons down. Anti-Mormonism has existed since the first days of Joseph Smith and his golden plates, and it's kind of tiresome. This isn't to say that we are going to take the Latter-day Saints' claims about early or current Mormonism uncritically. Churches manufacture histories. This is true of Christianity, it's true of Buddhism, it's true of Islam, and so many other traditions. Nations also manufacture histories, and fraternal orders, and cultural products, and on and on. Joseph Smith and the early Mormons were fairly amazing people and endured great hardship for their beliefs. The Book of Mormon is also difficult to accept entirely on its own terms as the document it claims to be. Second, Joseph Smith was very much an occultist. Now, when I said this about L. Ron Hubbard, founder of the Church of Scientology, I received some pushback from you, our lovely listeners, and I expect this claim will yield a similar response from you all, but the fact is, Joseph Smith was deeply engaged in early American occult practices, including treasure hunting, astrology, clairvoyant visions, and the use of sigils for protection. That's right, friends, sigils. Drawing on the work of some very talented and thorough scholars of Mormonism, I will demonstrate these things to you starting today. The reason that I suspect we are disinclined to accept Smith into our broader family of occultists is that the organization he founded has become a standard bearer for a particularly conservative, if heterodox, brand of Christianity, whereas modern occultists tend to identify as countercultural. Occultism belongs to us weirdos, not the hopelessly square residents of Salt Lake City. But the early Mormons were countercultural. They chose to believe in Smith's Golden Bible when the mainstream culture found the whole thing absurd, and then they cut out across the frontier where Smith led them into a now infamous experiment in plural marriage. Nothing could be more radical. My name is Dr. Robert C. Thompson, and I am the Supreme Hierophant of your secret order of alchemical actors, joined this day by Savannah Barrett, our sister of the 84th or 85th degree.
Hello.
What's up? How are things?
I'm tired. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry. We've been podcasting and all in seminars and meetings all day.
Savannah's just completed an episode, just posted, I expect, an episode on a movie that was secretly filmed in Disney World.
Escape from Tomorrow, a feature-length film. And it's like we argued about this a little bit. I consider it still a vaguely horror film.
Yes, yeah. Whether it's a horror film or not, yeah, subject to debate, but it's certainly a film.
And it's strange.
It's strange.
And you can check it out on Strange Ride.
It's a strange ride. Julian Dobbs is here. Julian?
Hello.
What's up? Our druid in residence.
Yeah.
How are things for you?
Things are pretty good. I'm excited.
Excited for Mormons?
Excited for Mormons.
Joseph Smith's Golden Bible?
Yep.
We, the members of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors, do solemnly commit ourselves to a full and honest telling of the history of the occult as far as we know it. Now, somebody open up my Order of Confessions. I haven't done this in too long. Make a noise. There it is. We have so many patrons to welcome into our family of patrons. Before I do, though, I do want to say that our patrons are getting some extra special bonus love starting now. Brianna Litterall has completed her first couple of episodes on her series Poison Roots, and I am going to be launching a special seminar for patrons, a 7-week seminar on American occultism, and that will be starting in March. So, you can be a patron at any dollar amount. I'm not trying to paywall this to the degree that, people can't play. You can play. So for $2 a month, you can play. You don't need to be independently wealthy. But I do want you to be a patron because it takes time and energy and effort, and we have to pay for things to make this happen. So please join our Patreon if you would like to participate in that special seminar. And it's just the first one. If it goes well and y'all are interested and you show up for my class, then I will have classes on the divine feminine and the soul and all sorts of topics that we love here on the show. All right, now let's welcome these patrons. We have Michael T., Ron W., Winter, Usonoro, Embroidered Yeti, Raisa Bowers, Trash Mama, Stephanie, Yoha, Suzanne, Golden Prawn, Anthony, Mandy L, Nick B, and that's Lilia M. I wanted to make sure it wasn't Lila.
I think the thing that gets me every time with the Patreon list is that it's like a bunch of normal names and then Trash Mama.
Yeah.
So,
There's something out of left field.
but thank you all so much for joining.
Yes, you're keeping us going. Patrons are important. It is not free for us to have our website. It's not free for us to have our advertising and all the sorts of things that we do for you, our research materials. So it's very important to keep the patrons going. Thank you. Let's close it up with another sound. And back to the Mormons. Okay. Now, y'all need to settle in here, because we are going to be with the Mormons for a while, but it's such an amazing and interesting story. And I don't want you to think that I'm about to, praise the Mormons. That's certainly not going to happen. I'm going to be highly critical of Mormon history and culture. However, it is also an incredible and deeply American thing that happened with Joseph Smith. So much so that, Tony Kushner, when he wrote Angels in America, which, is this brilliant 90s meditation on American culture, was very concerned with Mormonism. One of the major characters was a closeted gay Mormon. Because Kushner, I think, sees Mormonism as quintessentially American. And Kushner should know. He wrote that movie about Lincoln. I take my history of Joseph Smith and his discovery of the golden plates from his mother, Lucy Mack Smith. What better source?
Yeah.
I didn't read her original history of Joseph Smith, which was censored by the church for inaccuracies.
Oh, his
yes.
mother wrote
Yes, his
these
mother's own book.
Biographies about him and stuff?
She wrote his biography, yes, a biography. There's a variety of histories of the church, including some from Joseph Smith himself. But her biography of him was censored. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Some of the censoring may have been because she was a bit more direct about the occultism within the Smith family.
Oh.
Some of it was, from the church's viewpoint, they censored it because and edited it because her memory was imperfect of these events.
Isn't all memory imperfect?
I was about to say.
I read the corrected version. I read the corrected version, which was approved by the church.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
So that should,
Can
in
you
theory,
read both? Can you find the other version?
You can find the other one. Yeah, I'm sure you can.
Did you read the other? You only read the...
I only have so much time.
That's fair.
I read like dozens of books for
you
this.
He's only one man.
Yeah,
you had to watch Escape from Tomorrow.
And I had to watch Escape from Tomorrow. So this is going... So I guess that's my way of saying that this reflects what the Latter-day Saints want us to understand about their prophet, right? I got their version.
Got it.
Also about the scriptures that he dictated, which are important to the Mormons. As a scholar and historian, I prefer the primary evidence of Mother Smith's own recollections to official church histories, of which there are plenty. I would rather hear it from somebody who was there. That's a standard scholarly perspective. We can read Lucy Smith through the lens of her biography and analyze her story with all of the idiosyncrasies of personal memory with a ready set of critical skills to get as close as possible to the truth of a thoroughly debated moment. We can't do this so well with church histories because we don't know who they came from. We know her biases. We know about her life, so we can read her that way. This moment is no more or less debated than the origin story of nearly all the world's religions, I should say. It's not like we don't argue about the Gospels constantly, but the Joseph Smith Golden Plates moment is a very strange moment that we've argued about ever since it happened. And by we, I mean America. Right? There's even the Book of Mormon, right? Exists now.
And the South Park episode.
Trey Parker, Matt Stone are not kind about the golden plates. So we haven't given it up.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting too that like something as like pop culture as South Park talks about it a lot, arguably.
Yes.
Yeah.
They can't get past the golden plates.
And then make a whole musical about it.
So let's get to his mother. According to Lucy Mack, there was nothing especially remarkable about the life of the prophet Joseph Smith until he was 14 years old. I love this because we have to spare so much ink over Jesus's birth. But Lucy Mack is like, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it till he's 14. At 14, a gun was fired across Smith's path. So begins from the very outset a theme not only in Smith's life, but the story of the Mormons, the perpetual presence of an adversary. Unnamed and unknown intentions, the potential assailant receives no further attention. She just wants us to know that he was shot at when he was 14.
Interesting.
Seems like the devil, right?
Oh.
Yeah, it seems like a kind of Satan figure.
Smith's parents were taken with visions, which they later interpreted in light of Smith becoming a prophet. They were also immersed in an atmosphere of burned-over religiosity. Religious revivals were taking the United States by storm, particularly the frontier territory. Smith said, "So great was the confusion and strife among the different denominations that it was impossible for a person young as I was and unacquainted with men and things to come to any certain conclusion who was right and who was wrong." This is true. There's religions everywhere, all Christian, but different ways of interpreting. Smith went to a secret place to pray and was beset by a powerful darkness so foreboding that he couldn't speak, and he felt himself on the verge of destruction. Then an angelic pillar of light descended and dispelled the darkness, and Smith was freed from its influence. The Father, capital Father, and the Son, capital Son, appeared and spoke, telling him to follow none of the denominations, for all their creeds were an abomination. I mean, poof, got intense there real fast. It's like,
All of them are wrong.
right, they're a little off. They're an abomination.
Yeah.
It's a big word.
Right. But Joseph received no further revelation and went back to laboring with his father. That is until 21 September, 1823. That's the 21st of September. The year is 1823. When Smith was visited in his bed by the long-dead messenger, Moroni.
Literally, the American Prophet song is playing in my head right now. 1823. Rochester, New York, right?
Yes. Sometimes called an angel, Moroni was really the ghost of a man from a long-dead civilization of American Israelites. So you've heard, right, the angel Moroni.
Yeah.
But he was a human at one point.
Oh.
Moroni told...
Musical didn't cover that.
No.
Couldn't fit that in a snappy verse.
That's why we have podcasts. Moroni told Smith about a book deposited, written upon gold plates, giving an account of the former inhabitants of the continent and the source from whence they sprang. Moroni went on to quote the Bible at length and offer Smith explanations which Smith wrote could not be mentioned. So there's already some occult things going on here. Moroni is quoting the Bible at length, which is boring. We don't need to go through that. But Smith is telling us, his mother is taking this down right of him. Smith says, "I can't tell you everything Moroni told me." And I think we never know.
That's a theme that keeps happening with these golden plates, isn't it?
Yes.
'Cause he's
Joseph
the only
Smith
one...
is always like it's only for me to know.
This is esoteric at its heart, right? Not esoteric in the way we think about it. It's not associated with a specific esoteric practice, but it's esoteric to say, I have special knowledge that you can't have access to. The plates, said Moroni, could not be shown to anyone, nor could the Urim and Thummim, apologize to Mormons if I'm mispronouncing these things, nor the breastplate, which were tools for deciphering the plates.
What are the other things that you just said?
The Urim and Thummim were tools either to locate the golden plates, which I think they were partially used for, or tools to interpret them, or both, really both. They did both things. They're Old Testament, they're mentioned in the Old Testament as magical items, but and the breastplate as well is mentioned in the Old Testament. And I picture that as like an actual
literal armor,
like a suit of armor breastplate, that you would put the golden plates in, and then you would use these tools to decipher it. So these go to the Old Testament, but Smith like drags them up and makes them a central point for Mormonism. Moroni showed Smith a vision of where the plates were deposited, and then a conduit opened up to heaven, and he ascended out of the room. Now, this was strange.
Doesn't happen very often to people.
And yet, Julian, it does, because it happened again to Joseph Smith that very night in the exact same way.
Oh, mother.
The angel Moroni came back into Joseph Smith's room and did the whole thing over again, word for word.
For Joseph again?
Yes.
Like he
Just
forgot.
for him?
Does the whole thing twice. Some accounts suggest that it actually happened 3 times. Lucy Mack's, in my reading, it was only twice, but I think many Mormons believe that he was visited by the angel Moroni 3 times in one night.
The exact same script.
And did the same thing. Could you imagine if an angel visited you, left, and you're like, whoa, that was weird. And then the angel came back down and just did the exact same thing over again? Wouldn't you immediately start saying, wait.
We did this already.
I heard this.
Is he just making sure that
he just
didn't
keeps going? I don't know. It's like a glitch in the Matrix or something.
Remember, you have to go get these golden plates.
I think you're onto something, Julian, there, that Moroni was like trying to get the point home, but what a strange way to do it.
I'd also be like, do you think I'm stupid or something?
How many times are you going to tell me? Yes, I get it. There's plates.
Especially once it showed up the third time, I'd be like,
come on.
Go away.
And he's quoting the Bible, right? Which you already know, so...
I've read this before.
Get it over with. Get to the place where they talk about the hill. Can we fast forward? So, the next day while working in the field, Smith was struck by a terrible weakness, and the messenger visited again and asked why he hadn't told his father yet about his experience. Moroni had instructed him that he was to tell his father about what happened in the night.
It was literally the next day?
The next day he was meant to tell his father.
He didn't wake his dad up in the middle of the night.
Well, no, he could tell him in the field. So, like, working in the field. And suddenly he's stricken. And the angel shows up and he's like, what the hell? You're supposed to tell Dad.
Come on, man.
You're going to stay there until you tell Dad. Smith told the angel that or the messenger, I should say. See, I'm caught up in the Mormon terminology for Moroni, but a messenger is the appropriate word because angel is technically an ethereal being of God. Smith said he worried his father wouldn't believe him, and the messenger said his father would believe every word. Indeed, the elder Joseph Smith told Joseph Jr. to listen closely and follow the messenger's commands. You've received some good advice, son.
I mean, he showed up 3 times. Like,
right,
you could listen to him.
He means business. Smith went to Manchester in Ontario County, New York. He was in Palmyra, by the way, at the time. But then he went to Manchester, where he found the golden plates buried along with the Urim and Thummim and the breastplate. They were in a stone box. But the messenger said he could not take the plates from this place until he learned to keep God's commandments, and he should come back and check on them every year until then.
So he didn't take them right away?
Nope. They stayed for 4. He made 4 visits, 4 years.
That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm. It gets more interesting.
Have people is there a way to verify that those things were actually there for that time?
No.
That's just something that's said.
There's an apostate who I'm going to do a whole episode on named James Jesse Strang, who found his own golden plates in a completely different place.
Ooh.
And he didn't dig them up. He got different people to come and dig them up to show that the ground had not been disturbed before they broke the ground. But for Joseph Smith, he's doing the digging himself.
Got it.
He was 18 years old, and according to his mother, not well versed in the Bible or inclined to do much reading. During these talks, Smith described the ancient inhabitants of America and all their habits, material conditions, and ways. These talks, he's going now over these years and talking to his family. So as he's trying to keep God's commandments, he's also having these meetings with his family where he's talking about, something that he's learning from Moroni.
So Moroni is still around for these years,
somehow
giving him commandments.
Smith is like assuming the role of prophet without having access to the golden plates yet, is my take, just in his family circle. It's important to situate Smith's vision and discovery of the golden plates within the broader context of his paranormal treasure hunting. Orlando Saunders, a Smith family neighbor with a broadly favorable view of the family and by no means an anti-Mormon, said that both Joseph Jr. and his father Joseph Sr. were in the regular habit of divining the presence of water by using a forked stick or hazel rod, witch hazel being a sort of mystical thing. That is to say, a rod, made of witch hazel. The 14-year-old Joseph Jr., going back in time, had a forked stick that he told school friends he could use to divine the presence of money buried in the ground. I'm sure he got beaten up.
He got bullied for that one.
At least somebody fired a gun over his head. His father held a common folk belief that there was money buried around the country. You just had to dig it up, pirates' treasure and that kind of thing. No kidding, though. They really believed this. There's evidence that they believe these things.
Was there evidence that was true?
The golden plates.
Well, I'm not suggesting that they're lying. In general, I didn't hear that. I think that's such an interesting belief to believe that there's pirates' treasure buried around and stuff.
The research I did suggests that early Americans, there was a I won't say widespread, but common folk belief that you could divine using, rods or whatever, buried treasure, and that buried treasure was just, it was out there. It was out there to be found.
They go on a Goonies-esque adventure.
Yes, constantly. America was full of these, and Joseph Smith and Joseph Jr. were such Goonies.
Oh,
Fun.
So, Joseph
I love that
Jr.,
movie.
are you still with me, Mormon listeners? Stay there. Come on. I'll be fair.
Jingle, jingle, jingle.
Both Joseph Sr. and Oliver Cowdery's father were named as possible members of the fraternity of Rodsmen. So let's talk about the fraternity of Rodsmen.
Because they used the rods to find the treasure.
If you're wondering who
The frat
Oliver
of rods.
Cowdery is, he was the main transcriber of the Book of Mormon. He wrote most of it, according to Joseph Smith's dictate. According to historian John Brooke, the New Israelites, or Rodsmen, were led by Nathaniel Wood. So now take a moment, right? Oliver Cowdery's dad and Joseph Smith Sr. belonged to this group called the Rodsmen. Wood may have been involved with a group of separates before being excommunicated from a Congregationalist church in 1789 and establishing his New Israelite sect. Now, this is the leader of this group called the Rodsmen. Originally, the sect was mostly family and friends. Wood claimed that the group was literally descended from the lost tribes of Israel, and his congregation divined for gold to pave the streets in anticipation of the apocalypse on the 14th of January, 1802. That was a good apocalypse.
Yeah.
This divination focused...
This has nothing to do with like what the Seventh-day Adventists believed and stuff. Like,
No, but-
was it around
But
the
it's
same
very
time?
similar.
I mean, everybody had an apocalypse, the
Oh, okay.
Millerites, and but it does have to do with what the Mormons believe insofar as this notion of there being lost tribes of Israel and having some relation to America. Like, this is pre-Joseph's, this is Joseph's dad is in this little cult. Anyhow, they started to divine for gold so they could pay the streets. To get the gold, they did treasure hunting in and around Middletown and Rutland, Vermont.
Huh.
Wood predicted the arrival of a destroying angel who would purge the Gentiles and open the way for the new Israelites to inherit the earth. On that day, the Rodsmen clashed with local militia who had been brought out for fear of what the sect would do on the day of their Armageddon.
Whoa.
Wow.
This also sort of like presages Mormon history, but these aren't Mormons at all. This is a completely different sect of
But that's very
dudes.
Mormon.
Right, to be attacked by an American militia.
Yeah.
They fired over their heads, and the Rodsmen dispersed, bringing an end to Wood's church in an event that was later called the Wood Scrape.
Is that why they were called the rodsmen? Because they would use the rods to divine it?
Divine for treasure, yeah.
I was kind of making a joke, but
Nope.
that's true. They
And
are the
tied up to-
rodsmen.
Yes, they were the Rodsmen. That's
So
what
you're
we should have
normally-
called the alchemical
Yeah, I
actors.
was about to say, you're normally all over the adding a men to a thing, so I'm just like,
I don't need to this time. It's already there. On the 22nd of September, 1824, Joseph Smith returned to fetch the plates. He took them out of the box, set them down, went back to see if there was anything else in the box.
So did Moroni tell him you had to wait 4 years, or he told him
Once
you
a
had
year.
to...
You come back every year
Oh,
and check
sorry,
in.
he's checking, he's not taking them yet.
Correct,
Okay,
yeah, he
sorry.
And he
comes back
hasn't
4
started
times.
to like translate them yet.
Because he's not allowed to take them. They're
Gotcha.
still in the hill.
Got it. I'm sorry. I thought he was taking them now. Sorry.
Well, it was 1824, and he did remove them from the box, set them down, and then he went back to see if there was anything else in the box. But at that moment, they disappeared, and he prayed to the Lord for an answer as to where they had gone. And an angel appeared and told him he should not have set the plates down, and went back to search for other things in the box. He was supposed to carry them straight home and hide them. When he looked under the stone, the plates were there again, but when he reached for them, he was hurled backwards.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah. He went home to tell his family that he had failed, and they all prayed diligently, and that things would come right again for Joseph Jr. and his plates. Now,
So he reburied them and stuff?
they were gone.
Oh, they were just gone completely.
Angel took it from there, or the messenger, I should
I thought
say.
you said that they were back in the box and he got thrown away.
Yeah, but he didn't put them there. He put them down, and then they were gone.
Yeah, I thought
and
the
then they
angel put it
disappeared.
back in the box.
Yeah. Not
Angel-
Joseph. Yes,
Yeah.
there you go.
And
Yes.
so did he rebury the box then? Or the box buried itself?
It could bury itself.
Okay.
In treasure hunting lore, a treasure could actually escape you if you didn't use the proper occult formulae.
Oh,
and
to,
he
like-
did not.
If you weren't silent while you were digging for it, this is true. The belief was that the treasure could retreat
Ooh.
Oh.
and bury itself deeper into the earth. So you had to observe certain strictures, occult, strictures, It was a common belief of treasure seekers that an enchanted treasure, as I'm saying, could hide or otherwise escape those who dug after it by performing the proper ritual to bind the guardian spirits. And then maintaining silence during the digging, treasure seekers could attain their prize. Otherwise, they might lose it. It might sink into the earth. Strange circumstances around the episode when Smith was repelled from the golden plates have been kept from the official Mormon narrative. Listen closely now, Mormons. First, Smith used his brown seeing stone to find the plates, as reported by Martin Harris and Brigham Young. The reason he was deprived access to them was, according to his mother in her original manuscript from 1845, that he had pecuniary motivations while digging after the plates.
What does that word mean? Pecuniary?
He wanted some money.
Oh.
This gives more context to his sin in looking for something more in the box. Two neighbors also reported hearing from Joseph Sr. and Joseph Jr. that when Smith saw a toad in the that when Smith opened the box, he saw a toad in the box, which turned into a man, namely Moroni, I expect. Willard Chase reported this in 1833, and Benjamin Saunders, who provided a positive report of the Smiths as neighbors, repeated the story much later in 1884. The toad has likely been excluded from the story, as Mormons today understand it, because of the toad's historical association with the devil. Right?
Really?
Right.
Ugly toads, right? Witches and stuff have toads as familiars.
Oh.
Although there are certainly ways to interpret the toad in Smith's favor as a demon attempting to keep him from, the holy truth of God. We don't bother with that. Like the Mormons could say, oh yeah, there was a toad. That was the devil trying to keep Joseph Smith from translating the plates, but they don't bother. They just say, there's no toad. Interestingly, the scholar D. Michael Quinn notes that the word Mormon was used in Oliver Goldsmith's History of the Earth to refer to a venomous salamander.
Huh.
That's scary.
That's very
I
strange.
don't want to
That's
touch
so
it.
weird.
Not moron. Sorry, not Mormon. Moron. Moron. The angel's name is Moroni. And if we define the word moron with a capital M, at this time period, using this book, The History of the Earth, it means venomous salamander. Is this all clicking together?
So they're trying to suggest that Moroni was not.
It was
bad?
actually a demonic toad.
It was like a, satanic.
I don't know if they're saying that Moroni was this, but that there was such an entity that transformed into the angel or that was expelled by the angel or something. But there's a bit of magic going on around the place that the Mormon narrative excludes, that witnesses report, presumably because people talked about this. The neighbors talked about this story of Joseph. And so the toad had entered into that narrative. Belief in the intercession of angels is evident in the Smith family's magical lamens or parchments. Magical symbols are ancient and cross-cultural, but Quinn identifies the Smith parchments in particular as following a pattern of symbols that date to the medieval period and continued to appear in manuals for ritual magic up through Smith's lifetime. The Smiths had two such parchments. The first is the Holiness of the Lord parchment intended to precipitate the arrival of good angels. The square incorporates a variety of symbols, including two circular sigils and one egg-shaped symbol, with astrological markings to Jupiter, Hebrew lettering, and pentagrams. Yes, in the Smith family possession. Another parchment for protection asks St. Peter to bind them with a similar collection of symbols. They also had an amulet with Jehovah's name printed 3 times to protect the house. Magic, magic, magic.
Yeah, all over
Lots
the
of
place.
magic.
Quinn traces the symbols on these objects to Ebenezer Sibley's Occult Sciences, which was first published in 1784, and Reginald Scott's Renaissance tome, Discovery of Witches, which ironically was used to discredit witchcraft as essentially stage magic and became a manual for stage magicians for centuries afterwards. But it included this breakdown of symbols that were borrowed and incorporated into actual occult objects like these parchments.
So was it suggesting that the Smiths were just like, they just tried every religion ever, or
that they were totally into folk magic and were employing it? A Christian folk magic, not nothing demonic here.
No.
But they were using magic to repel, to attract the help of angels and to repel demons. In any case, Scott, Discovery of Witches, included in his book a typology of the spirit world, and significantly for this story, expressed his personal belief in astrology. So while Scott said witches are imaginary, he also said astrology, totally real. Sibley's work, by contrast, came from the standpoint of a card-carrying astrologer, and astrology is all up in the Joseph Smith story. Joseph Smith married Emma Hale, daughter of Isaac Hale, and was eventually allowed to move the plates. Quinn reports that Hale originally opposed the marriage because of Smith's association with treasure digging. I'm not going to let you marry some crazy treasure digging dude. How's he going to make any money?
Yeah, I was about to say, he needs a real job.
Right. Originally, Hale had been in favor of Smith's pursuits and even housed his treasure digging crew, but the culture was shifting against the practice of money digging, because, of course, we don't do it today. So early Americans were beginning to break up with it in Joseph Smith's lifetime. Quinn also argues that the marriage was motivated in part by the spirit Moroni. Between 1824 and 1827, Smith made, as we're saying, annual visits to the buried golden plates and conversed with Moroni. Contemporaneous witnesses report that 3 times Moroni asked Smith to bring a friend along.
Wow. It's like getting your butt involved.
Yes. The first friend was his brother Alvin, who died before the date for the yearly visit on September the 22nd. So Moroni says, bring your brother. And then his brother inconveniently kicks it.
That's interesting lore.
Because we go once a year, right?
Yeah.
So, year 2, Moroni's like, bring Alvin next time and I will give you the plates. And then Alvin dies and Joseph Smith's like, oh,
that feels,
no.
That feels like some devil... Sorry, I couldn't think of a nicer word.
Oh, the devil killed Alvin.
Maybe. I mean...
That's also just, like, sad.
It is sad. This led to... Alvin was like I think the holiest of the brothers. I think he was the most religious by some accounts. I mean, after the fact, no. I mean, Joseph and Hiram were quite religious, but this led to a rumor, likely false, that Alvin's body had been dug up so that Joseph could drag him to do the thing, but that's not true.
Jesus.
But the story, nevertheless, the fact that rumor existed shows that, that Moroni probably did ask for him to bring a friend. The second friend was a man named Samuel Lawrence, who never went with Smith, but likely participated in the treasure digging. The last friend was...
So Moroni was just like naming actual people that you should bring.
Bring me Alvin. Bring me this guy.
Why didn't that guy go?
I don't know. Maybe he didn't believe.
He's the devil too.
The toad got to him.
All these damn toads.
The last person of the 3 friends was Smith's wife, Emma Hale. Friends and neighbors report that Moroni told Smith
she was the one that went?
She did go, yes. Go, Emma, go.
He's trying to play matchmaker is what's happening.
Isn't that cute?
What a cute meet cute. Come treasure hunting with me so I can become a prophet for a new religion.
Hey baby.
You want to go meet this messenger?
Emma.
Friends and neighbors report that Moroni told Smith he had to marry Hale and bring her with him in order to receive the golden plates, and that Hale was...
Moroni said you had to marry her?
Yes. Yep. It's an arranged marriage.
Okay, but who's saying... Okay, how long...
Moroni's saying this.
No, okay, but how long did Joseph Smith have a crush on Emma and then was like, I'll say the angel told me to marry you?
No, baby, you have to listen to me.
I'll never
It was a messenger from God.
We won't get the golden plates. So Hale was there by some reports the night that he finally got them, either with her back turned or on the ground praying. I don't think any of this is part of the official Mormon narrative.
You think he was there alone in the official narrative?
I'm pretty sure that's how the Mormons relate it. I don't even think Emma Hale is regarded as having been there.
So does that mean in the official narrative that Moroni didn't ask him to bring people, or?
I don't think so.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is more like history rather than lore or whatever.
I guess it makes him more important if it's just him there alone, right?
It certainly elevates his role.
Yeah. And it also makes it easier to have it not be disproven.
Well, Emma was, but it helps to have a witness, doesn't it? Emma was there.
It does, but then in their official narrative, if they said that Emma was there, then people would be like, well, actually, we don't know for sure if Emma was there, and that may be a lie from Joseph Smith's part.
Emma's role in Mormonism gets more complicated too as history passes. Today, we will not be talking about their relationship getting complicated, but remember, Joseph Smith will eventually discover the doctrine of plural marriage.
Yeah.
And a spoiler alert, Mrs. Hale Smith was not on board. So
she stayed his wife for a long time then, though.
Up until his death.
Oh, okay.
She's a good Christian woman.
Oh, a Mormon woman.
Good Mormon woman. So, Hale was there the night he finally got the plates, either with her back turned or on the ground praying. So she wasn't looking, I think, when this happened. He probably found his Urim and Thummim on the same hill at the same time. He got all the things at once. Because a convoy from 60 or 70 miles away had been hired by a growing gaggle of Smith enemies to locate his golden Bible and dig it up. He hid the plates in an old birch log on the way back from his errand, and he was attacked by 3 men who gave him a heavy blow with the butt of a gun.
Damn.
Wow.
Oh, the gun again.
Yeah, but they didn't shoot him this time.
I
They
know,
didn't
but
wanna
there's
kill him,
still
just
the
scare him.
imagery of
violent.
the gun, though.
They want to get them plates. The men ran off and were never apprehended. But Smith and his Urim and Thummim we had the Urim and Thummim, and the Urim and Thummim told I just like saying it, I guess. I don't, though, and I keep saying it. What's wrong with me? They told him wherever he or the record, that is to say the golden plate, were in danger. So they like his Urim and Thummim would go off like a bat signal and be like, your records are in danger.
Sense.
Hey, yeah, that's what they would glow or something. I don't know if they glow. Don't write that down.
So that's why he hid them? Hid the plate
Initially,
in the book?
yeah, but he hid them a lot. He kept hiding them.
Well, yeah, I would probably too. Especially since Moroni's like, don't show anybody these.
Yeah. Or he's
Moroni
going to be
really doesn't want anyone to see them. He's going to be what?
like God's going to be really angry with you
that's
if
it.
you show
That's
these
what Moroni
plates.
says. You're right.
And you don't want to go against the will of God.
The plates, the golden plates, and the breastplate were next moved into the Smith family hearth. They were hidden in the fireplace, and then they were moved to the loft of a cooper's shop across the street. A young woman named Miss Chase, with the power to see very many wonderful things through a special piece of green glass, there's witches everywhere, claimed that she knew where Smith had hid his record. She was going to help people dig it up.
So this was like a big deal. Like the town was like all a buzz about these plates.
Yeah.
The town was on
Everybody
fire with
wanted
this.
these plates.
Yeah, and we'll talk about who these people potentially were and why they wanted them so badly, but there's a reason.
I mean, if I was a poor person who was constantly seeking treasure and I heard the guy next door found golden plates, I'd probably be like, oh, shit.
You're pretty close to the truth there.
Yeah.
Smith had separated the plates from the box. This is kind of clever, in which they were hid, and he placed them in the loft, whereas he hid the box under some floorboards. So he's doing a little of like, we talked about this a long time ago with remote viewing, where, these guys were able to spot Russian missile silos, but in order, by remote viewing them psychically. But to fool them, the Russians would stick like Mickey Mouse and stuff inside their missile silos.
I vaguely remember that.
Smith is essentially doing this. He's trying to fool the witch seer
Into seeing the box instead of the
Yeah,
plates.
she wasn't really a witch. I'm using that term for fun. But yes, she saw the box and they went and dug up the box and there was nothing in it because he had moved the plates.
Smith got us again.
Gotcha.
This sounds like a fun weekly cartoon where Smith hides the book and the plates and
The South Park episode that never was. The identity and motives of Smith's adversaries is a bit of a mystery in Lucy Smith's memoir, but Quinn argues that they were treasure hunters. So you were real close there, Savannah. They weren't just greedy people. They were his actual treasure hunting crew.
That had heard him talking about the golden plates.
Smith had probably promised that he would share in any gold he dug up.
Goonies never say die. Goonies stick together, man.
But-
This guy, his Goonies didn't want to stick with him once he found the treasure.
Think about it this way. These men had likely accompanied Smith on other failed treasure hunting digs on the promise that if he ever struck anything, that he would cut them in on the profit.
Oh.
So think about it that way. Like you and I are, I don't know, trying to make $1 million movie and you're with me the whole time and we're making all these movies and all of them are box
filming it
office
secretly
failures.
in Disney World.
But I'm like, Savannah, you just stick with me and we're going to make this $1 million movie.
Then you make the best movie ever made and you're like, you don't get
Yeah, but
cut.
I'm cutting you out. You're not involved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it was my idea.
I'm really mouthy, so I'd figure out a way
You
to
to at least tell
someone
the
to
Strange
notice
Ride
me.
listeners. Look what Rob did to me. I would get some strongly worded DMs in my Instagrams.
Do I got shooters? I got shooters out there for me?
Yeah,
Is that
I'm
the right
sure-
terminology?
Yeah, I
or the
think you
shooters not
do.
shooting at me? Never mind, sorry.
You
I don't
do
know
have-
why you were looking at me for that. Like
Because
I
you're
had
young.
the answer.
Okay, so the golden plates, of course, were different. They weren't just any treasure. Moroni told Smith to translate the plates, not to melt them down for scrap. So this angered his former associates, who very naturally felt cheated and attempted to swipe the plates from Smith by hitting him with the butt of a gun.
Again? A separate group of people?
And tearing up his house and his neighbor's house. No, I'm referring to all the things that happened to him. All this horrible stuff were his treasure hunting friends who felt cheated, is the argument here. Like, we're guessing, but that it makes good sense. Because there's no religious text that's been generated. There's no reason to get mad at Smith. He says he dug up some golden plates. Oh, you silly boy. You know, like, why are we so mad? Why are we attacking him and tearing up his house? The only reason anyone would do this is if they thought that they had been cheated and were entitled to this. Yeah. Smith decided it was time to begin translating the plates, which brings two of the more interesting and unusual characters into a story already filled with interesting and unusual characters. I'm speaking, of course, of Martin and Lucy Harris. You know these guys, right?
Here we go.
Yeah. Dum, 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 dum. Sorry.
Not Lucy. She's smart.
Yeah, smart.
Smith had confided in Martin Harris 2 or 3 years before about the existence of the plates. Remember, they're buried in the hill for about 4 years. And enlisted his help in doing the translation. So, Martin, can you help me translate these? His wife, Lucy, was suspicious of the whole golden plate undertaking. Much of her story, as far as I could tell, actually comes from Lucy Smith, Joseph's mother. We only really remember Lucy Harris because Lucy Smith recorded these details about her.
That's interesting.
But even Lucy Smith's version of events is a bit scattered. Lucy Harris was concerned that Joseph Smith was trying to defraud her husband with his story of golden plates. Martin Harris was a bit wealthy.
Oh.
She told the Mormon prophet that if he really had golden plates, she would help, that Lucy Harris would help him publish them. But she wanted to see them first. Smith said the Lord had instructed him, say it with me now,
not to show anyone.
Right.
Don't show anybody.
Not to show the plates to anyone except the people that God gives him permission to show them to. Some people will see the plates, but only the people God says. Lucy Smith said that the next day Lucy Harris reported a dream in which she debated with the Spirit of the Lord, and the Spirit showed her the plates and told her to believe.
Damn. Do you know how cool it would, I don't know, to have a dream where you're like giving it to the Lord, like,
yeah, the Lord.
Let me see these golden plates, goddammit.
And God's like, shut up about the golden plates already. Here they are. Move on with your life.
Yeah.
So
come on.
Naturally, Trey Parker, Matt Stone, in their version of this, do not tell this part of Lucy Harris's story, but there was a moment where Lucy Harris, according to Joseph Smith's mother, which is kind of a biased source, but had a dream where, God himself told her, let it be.
Mm-hmm. And she did after that?
No.
Lucy
Harris,
I can't blame her.
But she did give Smith $28, which was a lot of money, which she'd received as an inheritance when her mother died. She was like, here, we're rich. You can take this
Just
$28. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Which is like like $1,000. It's a lot of money. In
but I'm saying that, like, she was worried about her husband being defrauded, but she's giving him money anyway.
She has this dream.
Okay.
And she's like, here's some money. Martin Harris then gave Smith an additional $50 to do the Lord's work with.
Well, that's
a
also
lot of cash.
Money.
A lot of cash from the Harris family. So, the financial stake in Smith's work by the Harrises would have a significant impact then on Lucy Harris's attitude towards Smith's Golden Bible. So this is where things can go wrong. It's like I tell my students, you go to a Broadway show and you expect $200 worth of entertainment. Mm-hmm. You don't bring the same standard to a community theater production because you're only paying $20 to see it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now that Lucy Harris and Martin Harris have put $80 into this,
they expect to see results.
It makes Lucy Harris more critical. My point to my theater students is that your criticism is, pegged to your financial investment. Mm-hmm. And in this case, now that Lucy Harris is invested, she's expecting, I'm not going to say a return. She's not expecting a financial return. She's expecting a spiritual return on her investment. Smith's brother-in-law arrived to help him relocate to the home of his wife, Emma, in Harmony, Pennsylvania. So now he's moving in with old Isaac Hale, who had mixed feelings about him in the first place. Martin Harris got his affairs in order, packed his stuff, and headed off to help Smith translate the plates. Now they're all living with poor Isaac.
That poor guy.
Lucy came too?
Lucy Harris accompanied him on one of these trips for a couple of weeks. where she again demanded to see the plates. She ransacked the Mormon prophet's house
Wow.
and then went outside to see if he'd buried them. While she was out there, I find this very interesting. She reported that a tremendous black snake stuck up his head before me and commenced hissing at me. The Smiths had a curious relationship with the snake, traditionally a negative figure in Christian circles given its role in the fall of man, right? Snakes
Yeah.
are not a positive thing, but here the snake
Is stopping
is
her.
right.
Yeah.
Mormons, in fact, reinterpret the Garden of Eden story and put a positive spin on Adam and Eve's experience with the Tree of Knowledge. Second Nephi argues that if Adam and Eve, that's from the Book of Mormon, for those of you who are not Mormon listeners, Nephi is one of the first two books of Mormon, is First and Second Nephi, argues that if Adam and Eve hadn't eaten from the Tree of Knowledge, they would have lived in a kind of perpetual stasis with neither pain nor joy, capable of neither good nor evil. The Book of Alma elucidates that this would have deprived humanity of the process of preparation for meeting God. So the Mormons think of all the events in the Garden of Eden as kind of like just it had to happen and it's not so
It's
bad.
a sacrifice that had to happen.
Otherwise, we would have neither pain nor joy. We would not be prepared for
We would
God. We'd
be
all be sort
living.
of like existing in stasis, or we wouldn't exist at all. Just be Adam and Eve living in stasis with nothing ever changing.
Right.
So, anyway, Lucy Harris went home and told everyone she met that Joseph Smith was practicing a deception upon the people.
Oh.
Yeah, so the snake didn't turn her mind about this.
I kind of like her. I kind of like this. I feel like in a time too, because like I feel like women probably didn't have a lot of say in a lot of things in this time period, and for her to be so adamantly like, I don't trust this.
Well, you might like her better how she actually articulated this in what I read as a kind of sarcastic joke whenever her husband, Martin, would show a sample of the strange hieroglyphs that were on Smith's plate. Lucy Harris would bring out a paper of her own hieroglyphs she kept in her pocket and said, well, my markings are as genuine as Joe Smith's.
Wow.
Yes.
This bitch. I love her.
Yeah.
Anyway, translation involved Smith retreating into the darkness to peer at the plates in a hat, where he'd also placed the breastplate, Urim and Thummim. This is an image I think that has been made much fun of. Joseph Smith jamming
putting
his face
stuff in the hat.
in a hat. But that's what happened. The hieroglyphs would then appear to him in Roman typeface so that he could read them aloud to Harris. After they'd worked on about 100 pages, Martin Harris begged to be allowed to take the manuscript home to his wife. Remember, she's not on board. To show her their efforts were authentic and worthwhile.
I also kind of just love the imagery of Martin being like, can I please show this to my wife? I need to prove her wrong.
I'm so tired of her telling me how dumb I am. Smith asked the Lord, who initially refused, but then allowed Harris to take the manuscript home. The Smiths had a son who died, sadly, shortly after childbirth, and Smith returned home fearing that Harris had lost the manuscript, even though he worried for his wife's mental and physical health. It's really a very sad moment in this story.
Joseph Smith lost a son?
Yes,
in this
Joseph
moment?
Smith's son
And,
dies.
Emma?
But he's so worried because Martin Harris has been gone with his 116-page manuscript for weeks now. His wife is distraught.
Yeah.
But Smith is so worried about this thing that he does care, I think, deeply about, that he chooses to leave his wife. He's panicked over this.
Oh.
And Smith himself is in terrible shape because he's been nursing his wife and
and
mourning
dealing
his
with the son.
Yeah. So
How did the son die? Sick?
he's a baby in 1820,
Got
something.
it. It just
it's bad
happens.
times, man. Smith was exhausted by the journey, and Lucy, his mother, tells of a stranger who helped him home, leading him by the arm at least 4 miles. When Smith at last found Martin Harris, Martin admitted that the manuscript was gone, likely stolen by his wife. But Harris didn't know where the manuscript was, and he couldn't find it. Smith despaired that he had not listened to the first answer which he had received from the Lord, for he told Smith that it was not safe to let the writing go out of his possession. Harris had been instructed to show the manuscript only to a select number of people, but he began showing it to pretty much everybody. And then it disappeared.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dum 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 dum.
Lucy Harris went on to claim that Smith had invented the tale of the golden plates to separate her husband from his money, and that his box contained nothing but sand or lead. She rode house to house, seeking out Smith's opponents, and brought a suit against him. But when her husband told the magistrate that Smith had never gotten any money from him that he didn't give willingly, the case was dismissed.
Wow. So this is like the first iteration of painting Joseph Smith as the con man.
Lucy Harris is, yes, I think the first attempt at this, and her own husband disputes her.
Yeah.
Not a happy marriage bed.
No. Special Lucy sounds like she holds a grudge, so
She's not a happy woman.
no.
There's some suggestion in Lucy Smith that Lucy Harris kept the 116 pages and used it to dispute Joseph Smith to some extent, because when Joseph Smith came out with the Book of Mormon, of course, the first 116 pages were not identical to
what she had.
what Martin Harris had produced, but that's not quite clear. So I that's just me guessing. The Lord was also very angry, but not with Martin Harris, although, tangentially with Martin Harris, directly angered with Joseph Smith, his prophet, and he asked for the Urim and Thummim back.
Ooh.
If Smith was worthy and penitent, they would be returned. And they were returned as promised on the 22nd of September. Now, we've heard this day before, have we not? The 22nd of September? This is the day that Joseph Smith went to collect the Book of Mormon, or the golden plates, 4 years in a row. The 22nd of September has a close association with the equinox. 21st, right? 21st, 22nd is when the equinox happens, the fall equinox. And it has some astrological significance to that degree. But the Urim and the Thummim suggests Smith's relationship further with seer stones. So again, we're seeing occultism
Sprinkled.
just keeps coming up. So he's got magic stones and he's following an astrological plan for things. Arguably, a lot of Joseph Smith's marriages and things are also, like the plural marriages, are pegged to significant astrological dates. A seer, according to popular lore of the time period, had to be a virgin or youth who had not known a woman and could discern answers and secrets by looking into a crystal or beryl. That's Berryl, a beryl. As a boy, Smith visited Sally Chase, the Miss Chase who was responsible for divining the location of his golden plates hidden in the cooper shop, the witch.
Oh.
Yeah. So he knew
Small
her
town.
before all these things. Sally Chase had a seeing glass, and Smith went to her and asked to see her glass. She placed it in a hat to exclude the light, and Smith saw a vision of a small stone a great way off under a tree. He went and located the tree and dug and discovered his own seeing stone. E.W. Vanderhood's grandfather paid Smith 75 cents to look into his white glossy stone to locate a stolen mare, which Smith did, and the mare was recovered on the lakeshore, about to be smuggled into Canada.
Wow.
Arguably, that's where a horse would be, but this is evidence, outside of any of these events, that there was a guy who asked Smith to look into his magic rock. Mm-hmm. Smith had magic rocks.
Okay.
Smith also had a green stone and a brown stone that he discovered while digging for the Chase family at Palmyra. So that last stone, both the white stone and the brown stone, are associated with the Chase family, which is just interesting. Next to assist Smith in the transcription of his book was Oliver Cowdery. He came with his brother and was employed at the district school in Palmyra. On learning about the Smith plates, Cowdery decided that he had to help the Mormon prophet with his writing. Smith had been working with his wife to write the book, but she was so taken up with housework that she hardly had enough time to write. And so Smith called on the Lord for assistance, and Oliver Cowdery arrived, along with Samuel Smith, Joseph's younger brother. Cowdery began to assist in translation, with Samuel helping a bit, but mostly assisting on Joseph's farm to allow more time for Smith and Cowdery to work together, with Smith baptizing Cowdery, Cowdery baptizing Smith, and then baptizing his brother Samuel. These were the first three people to be baptized as Mormons.
Okay.
Joseph Smith, Oliver Cowdery, and Samuel Smith. Smith and Cowdery relocated to Waterloo with an angel transporting the plates for them and completed the translation there. Afterward, they gathered in the woods.
So Harris is no longer involved.
Martin Harris is still involved.
Oh.
But he's not allowed to translate anymore.
That's fair. That's fair.
Because, funny you should ask, I was just about to say they gathered in the woods with Martin Harris and David Whitmer, who was Smith's host in Waterloo, where an angel told them that Smith's work concerning the plates was true. 8 additional witnesses, half of which were from the Whitmer family, were shown the plates by Joseph Smith and handled them. They swore affidavits to this effect. Harris funded half the printing for the first Book of Mormon, Martin, with Joseph and his brother Hiram paying the balance. Smith gathered detractors as quickly as he gathered converts. A mob of 40 waited to intercept him when he first transported his completed manuscript in Palmyra. Then the editor of the Dogberry paper on Winter Hill, a kind of humor publication, got a hold of the manuscript and started printing it in serialized version until Smith brought him to court to cease printing. It'd be like Mad Magazine getting a hold of your
religion.
Yeah.
and publishing it in a serialized form as a joke. Yeah, to make fun of you.
Ooh.
That's,
Not so cool.
No.
The first printing was finally completed in the spring of 1830. All of Lucy Mack Smith's sons were ordained into the ministry, including her 14-year-old son, Don Carlos, after the church was formed on the 6th of April, 1830. And this concludes our conversation about the golden plates. What do you think?
It's a wild story.
It is, isn't it?
It's interesting
so
how
many details, right?
frequently he is attacked by other people.
It seems to be like a through line throughout all of Mormon history, is that they're always being violently attacked by people.
I want to say that this is a time period when you just did that.
Yeah, I had the
That's
thought too
true.
about you saying that there was a angry mob of 40 people showing up. I'm like, I wonder what it would have been like to be in an angry mob. Like,
I mean, I'm reminded of Maggie Fox, who's one of the first spiritual mediums. She was attacked by mobs. On issues of religion, people could get real weed up real fast.
I'm sure.
It's
That's
still
true.
true today.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a much more secular society, so some of these things are like, why are they so wound up? But this guy is claiming he's got a direct revelation from God. And it's ultimately going to be not exactly what most people define as Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Although his early converts, as we go along with this story, read the book and say, yeah, this is what I think Christianity is. Yep, this is good. I'm with you. Brigham Young, that's basically his response is, oh yeah, this is Christianity. It's good common sense. And off you go.
but it's not. It's Mormonism.
The Book of Mormon, which is our next episode.
It's the fourth book of the Christianity, right?
So we have the Old Testament, we have the New Testament, and then you have
It's
the
a
Book of
third.
Mormon.
It's a third. I'm sorry. Right, because it's the Return of the Jedi, says the Book of Mormon musical.
For some, there is a fourth book. The Strangites believe there's a fourth revelation.
Oh,
But
I got my numbers mixed up.
for Joseph Smith, this is the third revelation. It's the Book of Mormon. There will be the Pearl of Great Wisdom or
So
something.
it is
and
still
stuff,
it's still Christianity, but it
It's plus
fractures into its own religion.
it purports a variety of things that adhere to general Christian principles, but our next episode will be about the Book of Mormon, the contents of the Book of Mormon. Maybe I'll keep you around. We'll find a new friend. Sorry, Julian.
It's all right.
I get to
I gotta
stick
mix
around.
it up. Gotta mix it up. Gotta keep it interesting. However, the Book of Mormon as a document is supposed to be composed by a man named Mormon, who was a Jew, who traveled from Israel. Well, he didn't. His ancestors, the Nephi,
To America.
and then met Jesus and stuff somehow, and underwent a variety of things, and ultimately died in a kind of like apocalyptic event, apocalyptic war. They were wiped out. So none of that is biblical.
No.
However, a lot of it becomes insofar as there is a Christocentrism to the Book of Mormon, and I'll get into that
That's
word
true.
and
Yeah,
what that
Jesus
means.
is mentioned a lot, right?
The Nephites, who exist 600 years before Jesus, are already waiting for Jesus.
Right. Well, because and doesn't he got crucified and then he shows
Yes.
up
Ultimately,
as he was crucified to these other people, right?
600 years later,
Yeah.
the actual Jesus in the Book of Mormon arrives in America. But long before he arrives, the Nephites in the year like 600 BCE talk about a man like Jesus who will eventually come and reveal the truth and save mankind and all this sort of stuff.
So it is its own religion?
It is Christianity in that way, that
Okay.
Jesus remains central in Jesus' teaching in the New Testament, but then it goes off in its own directions in a variety of ways. Arguably the most significant is Joseph Smith himself, arguing and then establishing a priesthood and a prophethood that says God still speaks to us now, that I am still in contact with God, says Joseph Smith, and therefore I, as the prophet of my people, can create new doctrine, like plural marriage, for example. I mean, most controversially.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that requires that you still be in touch with God. Whereas Protestantism and even Catholicism,
They weren't in touch with God a lot anymore.
it's over. Yeah, God intercedes with angels and there's devils and stuff for
Doesn't
Catholics,
the Pope,
but
talk to God?
the
Isn't that a
Pope does
thing?
not receive. The Pope's job is not to completely upend the church, though, with a brand new doctrine.
That's
God
true.
can't tell the Pope, well, now everyone must wear pink. You know,
On
it's a
Wednesdays.
really random thing, but yeah, like even the LGBTQ issue is a complex one for the Catholics because it really has to come back to the Bible. God's not going to completely change the way he thinks.
So it's like once it's written in the Bible, that is how it is. While as Joseph Smith was like, it's the Bible, but it's also all this new stuff.
I can alter the Bible to some extent.
Yeah.
I can introduce brand new doctrine. Yes, the Pope does that, but always rooted in tradition. Joseph Smith does not need to appeal to tradition necessarily to say that plural marriage is okay. He can, because it's in the Old Testament, but obviously it's not a New Testament idea.
Yeah.
So,
yes, Mormonism is its own religion.
for sure.
Okay.
But it is its own religion within Christianity.
Okay.
It is a sect of Christianity.
Okay.
Just like Christianity is a sect of Judaism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I'm the least religious person. I'm like,
I don't
okay,
know.
just trying to make
Lately, you probably know more about religion than some people who go to church.
sure. I mean, that's fair. I know a lot about a bunch of different ones, but it's also
You now know more about Mormonism than most Americans.
look at me. Look at us.
Maybe even some Mormons who may or may not dispute some of the story I just told. However, what I'm telling you is of the historical record. This is just historians of Mormonism who have relayed these things. And I would bet in the grand outline, Mormons would agree with me about all of the things I said. But it's when we get into some of the details about toads and whether there were witnesses and that kind of stuff that the official church doctrine may stray off. But there is documentary evidence that this is, if not true, at least possible. I hereby adjourn and declare closed this meeting of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors until such a time as we get together and do it again. My name is Dr. Rob C. Thompson, joined this day by Julian Dobbs, our druid in residence,
See you soon.
and Savannah Rhett, sister of the 85th degree.
Goodbye. Thank you for listening.
When we come back next time, we are going to take a good, hard look at the Book of Mormon. No, Mormons, do not fear. There are aspects of this book that I don't hate. Mark Twain is perhaps going to be your harshest critic, and that happened over 100 years ago. But I won't spare some of the criticism when it comes to the Book of Mormon, which is a truly unusual document, here on Occult Confessions.